7:01.
Perfect. Well, at least you're here.
Yeah. You guys just gotta get on my schedule.
Use, Simone, can you pass down those packets and then
Thanks, Mom.
maybe one of those newer, versions of, fire department budget? So, so I can have that.
Thank you very much.
All right, 7:01, I'd like to bring this meeting of the town of Arundel Budget Board of Selectmen, call to order. First item was approval of the agenda.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add one other piece to the agenda. Probably after we get done with item 3, before we go to item 4. I had a meeting today with some of our 6 members of our staff that wanted to talk to me about wages. I'd like to share that with you folks tonight for the end of the meeting. That's all I have. Move to approve as amended.
Second.
I'd actually like to, throw something in there.
Listen, you're fast, girl.
Discussion about, increasing selectmen's pay.
Like to add that too?
Yes.
John, that's the nicest thing you've said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It's a great deal.
Right there.
It's like, yeah. Thanks, Andy.
It's got both of these. Certificated.
I don't think a selectman can second that, but I will if I have to. We got John and Jason on the second for that. Yeah. Okay.
No second on mine.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Oh.
Jason second.
In a second.
I got it. All right, do I hear anything? In regards to the agenda then? Nothing else? Any changes?
Yeah, I made a motion as amended.
Yeah. And then a second.
All right. All those in favor? All opposed? Thank you very much. Move on to the review of the fire rescue 1301 operating budget.
Yes, both deputy chiefs are here this evening to talk a little bit more about their request for funding. The first one I have on here was the review of the operating budget. And then their request for reconsideration or consideration for full-time firefighter, EMT or paramedic. Discussion on the upgrade of the self-contained breathing apparatus, purchase of the ambulance and the fire gear and radio upgrades. So all of those lumped together, I guess. So I think we might as well start with the operating budget. Any specific questions related to it? Change some numbers on it. relative to further discussions that we had, particularly on vehicle maintenance and vehicle fuel. We made adjustments there.
Why did the full-time salary go down?
Don't ask questions like that.
I'm not sure why it went down. I've got in here what it specifically should be funded, which would be the 3 full-timers that we presently have. That's what's funded. Now, the only thing I can assume is that when we put the budget together last year, there were some employees that we had anticipated a full family benefit package on them, and they weren't needed at the time. So that could be part of the adjustment related to that.
Does that account for the basic leaving and the potential paramedic being hired, the difference in value, so to speak?
In this budget number?
Yep.
No, that would be whatever we had on staff right now, when I put the budget together. So we had we had Reno and his salary and benefits. And then we had 2 firefighter Speckett and firefighter Babcock, they have a 2 billion. So whatever their level of medical certifications that they have is what I have built in. I think that I had those going from 2245, which is presently in there, to 2389 for one, and 2218 for the other, based on their certification experiences.
And on the overtime, did we miss the number last year? Because you only had 3,000 for overtime. That seems like awful.
Well, it was low, and again, I think in the department and I had discussions on this. Primarily, it's simply because of growing pains. You know, now we have full timers. I didn't know what our overtime would be based on the requirement of perhaps having these folks come in and have to fill shifts, and what those costs would be associated with it. So now that we have some real numbers and what they're telling me we should be anticipating moving forward, we've come up with a $25,000 number in here for overtime. You know, before we had per diems, cover shifts, there was no overtime involved with those folks.
And I think another part of that, Keith, was before we had the other guys, I had to work 53 hours before I could get into overtime.
Correct.
So we didn't need that much back then, but I very rarely got up to 53 hours, so.
Three shifts, 24/7, year round.
Well, it's not gonna accomplish that. The unfortunate part is we're decreasing in our numbers of personnel. I've got information here, let me, my right one here, my right folder. So just to give you an idea, from, get the right paperwork here. I do have it. Roll this one. Okay, from June through September of last year, we had 26 employees working. Then October through excuse me. Yeah. June through August, we had 26 employees working. September through November, we had 25. December through February, we're down to 23. And as of current, when I just pulled the records the other day, we have 21, and this includes full-time and part-time people.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got one on medical leave. I got one of those leaving of the 21. I've got, one on admin leave, one resigned, and I've got one on military leave.
So we close down the ranging from about 20 to 26. And can you staff all shifts all the time?
As of right now, it's gonna be tough to do that. We've gone from, 93% down to 81, back up to 88, and the last time I pulled, we're at 80% of staffing all three positions. That is correct.
Thank you for that question. Bro. Is anybody know the population of that closest?
It's probably somewhere between the 43 and 4,500 people. Right.
And with 40, 36 or 40 permits a year.
Well, the permits may vary. I don't know what the permits are right now. That are issued.
30 people a year. Okay.
Yeah. I think the more important statistic is the one that Andy shared with me. The calls for service that are up extremely amount for the department right now.
When I pulled for April 12th, we were up 49% versus last year, same period.
That's kind of where I'm headed, because with the town growing and several of us are getting very younger, there's a lot of them. And I think chronic staffing is very important. We should be adding the person here.
Our goal is to have, the ultimate goal is to have a minimum of 2 people on, max of 3, okay? At least that way we can get the ambulance rolling.
Have two
Right,
ideal.
correct.
That's an enormous increase in the number of calls. What's causing the spike?
I don't know what's causing the spike, to be perfectly honest. I know that we're going to Kennebunk a little bit more. When I pulled data from last year, the amount of mutual aid that we received and gave, it was 180 and 185 and 187. So it seemed to be pretty even. I haven't pulled data as of yet this year. I can try to do that while we speak, but it seems like we have been utilized as a mutual aid to other towns a whole lot more at the beginning of this year than what we have before. Even though Kennebunk's increased their staffing, so they're staffing a minimum of 7, right? And running 2 ambulances, their call volume during the day is significantly increased, which is causing us to go over there and be their 3rd ambulance, which generates revenue in the long, because we're able to bill the patient for the run, but we're being utilized. And any paramedic intercept.
As well as, is there a balance between providing service to others? Several. Really, what we receive.
Well, how do I want to say that? It depends on the call volume at the time, right? So a lot of times, when I say we're going mutual aid, we're going there for a medical call. So we bill the patient directly, so we get the income from that. When we're talking about fire calls, I think when we look at that aspect of things, it's relatively equal. We just came into another agreement with Goodwin's Mills that any, car accident on 111 all the way to Kennybunk Pond, we're gonna be responding with them. And they're gonna be returning the favor to us as well, just for additional manpower, because if you have that critical patient, we're gonna be 3 people in the back of the ambulance. And at the bare minimum, help direct traffic, get our truck back to the station, because we don't have call members coming out very much anymore. You know, I don't wanna keep a $600,000 piece of equipment on the side of the road. But that's what our extrication tools are on, that type of stuff. So at least they can get it back, secure it back into the bay and that stuff. We're also gonna be developing more with Biddeford because they need an additional engine for some of their area out towards our line, essentially Biddeford Crossing. And, so I've already spoke tentatively with the chief about returning the favor for car accidents on Route 1 all the way down to Log Cabin Road and Campground Road. So any car accident, they'll be sending an engine on that. So.
The other thing too, and that you haven't touched upon it, but we are the primary ambulance service that provides paramedic intercepts on the Route 111 corridor. So if somebody's coming from Waterboro or Alfred and they don't have a paramedic on board, our staff will meet them with our paramedic and then go to the hospital with them. So there's a lot of give and take, a lot of use of services, use of personnel, really.
So does our paramedic get into their ambulance?
Yes. But,
So you go meet them with our ambulance or one of the
Yeah.
trucks or what have you?
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it depends on where we're going, like if we're going main med, just have the ambulance will come back to quarters here. Instead of following all the way up there, but if it's just a Southern Maine, they'll follow the Southern Maine that way. As soon as the patient's off the stretcher, the burn report's done, they're back in service.
Do we get to bill anything when our paramedic goes in their ambulance?
I don't know if we have that policy yet. I think it's something that's something that we can definitely look into. Most departments, it's like $250, $300. We are utilized more than we would ever utilize other departments to come in to us. Because we're so close to the hospital, we're never gonna call for a paramedic intercept from typically Goodwin's Mills or Alpha or Waterville or Hollis. And that's who's utilizing us.
Well, that's precisely the reason.
Yeah.
We really need a policy.
Yep.
We get a few bucks if our paramedic is going in their ambulance.
Anything else on the general operating budget at this point?
So does this include that other full-time person, or is this just includes what we have now?
This includes what we have now.
And when it comes to the overtime, what we've been doing is if there's 2 per diems on, we don't fill the 3rd vacancy with full-time or overtime. It's only if we're down to 1 person working, then the overtime is offered to fill that need for a 2-man minimum, 2-person minimum.
So do you have an idea of what the cost would be to add an additional person, including benefits and everything? Do you have a-
Yes,
Maybe 4.
no, it was 96.
It's on 96,892.93.
And would that cut down on the overtime if you had another person?
It all depends on what our per diem staffing is. We're coming into the summertime, so that's our per diems like to enjoy summertime a little bit. During the fall and winter, it seems like we're at more staffing.
It does
But-
have the potential.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah, get the person filling in that many hours.
we've been filling the 4th vacancy with a per diem. So that per diem's been averaging 42 hours a week. Right on.
I'll make a motion that we tentatively approve 1301 for 102. 1 million, no,
1 million.
1 million, 1,023,689.
23,689.
Well, that doesn't include an additional firefighter.
Right,
Should we,
right.
before we vote to approve this, should we make a decision?
I thought we were gonna talk about that separately.
or-
Yeah, I'm gonna, it would be,
So,
it will be a separate warrant article, so we'll keep it separate. If it gets approved, then we build it into this budget, so you'd add another 96.
Yeah.
Motion been made, seconded, any
Was it second?
John,
John second? Okay, sorry, John.
So motion been made and seconded, any further discussion with regards to 1301?
Are we going to make sure in the town report book that we let them know when they look at this, that this is combining? What did we normally have, like 3 different articles?
Right, right, I'll set a blurb in there that we combine both the per diem department budget and the call department budget into one budget.
Because when they look at $1 million, they're going to fall off their chairs. But it's funny because if they looked at it in 2 parts, we just zip through, but
Yeah, we,
Not really.
I know, that's wrong. I'm like, that's.
yeah,
I think like, even last year's budget was 900 and something thousand.
yeah.
What was it? The small, you got that?
Yeah, 907.
As far as the articles themselves.
Yeah, it was 907,663.
Fire rescue. Well, the fire rescue alone was 753. Actually, we bumped it to 741,600, and then you had your additional paramedics. That took additional positions for 184,000.
Right.
Or then drop down to 164. And then, is it everything else? Yeah, so you had your 741 plus 164.
That's probably a 907, 663.
Yeah. It was 2 articles.
Yeah, I don't think there's usually too much pushback on fire. Most people here see support of that.
Yeah, probably because most of the ones in the room have used them. so.
8,000 squares, 3-4 articles again.
Wait a minute, any sports game going on? Need to figure out.
They hit on something there. But I don't think if it's
We did one time with
on the table, it can't be.
No, with the South expectation. Right, Thurwood was like, where do they go?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember, yeah, it was.
So it's actually.
So any other further discussion in regards to this? All of those in favor of the 1,023,689? All opposed? None. Motion passes.
So why don't we talk about the full timer? You know, what it's gonna cost, Andy was able to provide some pretty compelling data that we had to discuss, particularly on the percentage of call volume, which I thought was pretty important. And maybe perhaps you can share that information based on what our counterparts are doing in terms of volume per personnel.
So one of the things that we try to do is we have to use a particular matrix. When it comes to staffing. So when we look at staffing, it's like. You want to put it in the industrial, how many widgets does each employee produce? Okay. The standard out there is around 325. And that's where I see where you're at adequate staffing. Okay, and we're right around 350 at this point in time, and with our significant increase in call volume, we're gonna be up around 375. That's with about 2.1 people or positions being staffed, because we won't be at 100% of the time. The goal would be that, but
So that's 350 what
calls per position.
calls per position?
Yeah.
Calls
Per position. So if you have 2 people on and you do 800 call, so you have a minimum of 2 people on 24/7, right? 800 calls a year, that's 400 calls per position. Now, we do have, where I work full-time, we're around 675, but we're way understaffed. So,
Does that include the chief as far as in your call breakdown?
no, it doesn't, at this point, just,
Does he figure in at all in the staffing on some days when you're short on per diem or anything like that?
that would be the goal. That would be the goal. Yep.
Should
Often.
be expected from us.
That would be the ultimate goal.
That's kind of why we chief with service, right, so that he could go out and.
Right. We've heard that loud and clear, and that would be a directive as we move forward with the position. He's here 30 hours a week, and we will make sure that whoever's filling that chief's position, I still don't know the status of the chief. He's still out on medical at this point. He's not been cleared to return to duty either at his full-time job or here, so. But when he does, or if he doesn't, and we fill a position, whoever fills that position will be required to run those calls when he's here.
It's good. That's why we
Correct.
did that position down
Correct.
in order to do that.
Yep.
Which understandably so, like if we only had 1 person on there and the chief's there, that makes 2, right? I think that's where we're going with that, correct? Yeah. Yep. That'd be the ultimate goal.
So the addition of a person is what, 90, huh?
97,000.
Yeah.
7. And you have that number already plugged into your stuff, John? Was that in there the last time that we talked?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think if, given the increase in the number of calls, it's pretty obvious that we're moving from part-time personnel to full-time personnel. I can support putting another full-time guy on without a problem. Well, everybody else thinks, but it seems to me to make a lot of sense.
The question is, can we find somebody?
Well, that's another problem.
That is the next question, and then comes into the state's offering like grants for advancement of from basic to EMT. So the state's paying for the cost of the class. And then we would just have to, cover their shifts. And hopefully, we had 3 people on that day, so they could leave and nothing's, we don't drop below 2, so we don't have to hire overtime.
Right, so what he's saying is that we may be able to hire somebody who doesn't have the certification. And then we can, if we hire him as the right candidate, then we can send him along and the state's gonna pay for that certification.
Right,
And we'll have to pay him. It's almost like what they do with full-time police officers. You send them to the academy. They go and they get their training, but they're on your dime while they're away. It would be the same thing here. We find the right candidate. Maybe we'll be lucky to find somebody with a paramedicine license that wants to come our way.
but it opens up the pool anyway,
Right.
It gives you.
Correct.
More
It would
people
give us
to-
more, a variety of people maybe to consider that want to be to work in this profession.
Does that fall under any type of policy where if we help provide like the grants and, cover their salary while they're learning, for them to commit to like at least another year of service once they get it, or something like that?
Interesting, Simone, right? The state has seen fit to put a statutorial law in there for police officers. But there's nothing in there for fire department at this point. And essentially what happens, a police officer, they may go to the academy, be trained for the town of Arundel. And then they get there and somebody from the city of Portland says, hey, you wanna come work for us? And then before they even come to work for us, they've been scooped up by somebody else. And what happens, the city of Portland then pays back us the pay that they had, and we get a reimbursement for it, but that doesn't accomplish our goal. So maybe we can get some legislation to cover firemen, but not quite sure if we're there quite yet, but that would be a great piece. We could also have them sign an agreement. Now, the agreement may or may not, it probably would not hold up in a court of law, but it may, if you, I'm sure that if hopefully you hire somebody who's committed and they're willing to stay, and if they sign the agreement, they'll honor it.
You could do a bonus thing too, that if they're here for a year, then they get
Yeah,
grand, $2,000.
so there's a lot of alternatives, but to answer
What she was doing.
to answer your quick question, no, it's nothing to stop them from moving on.
I think you're at the point as a municipality that you have a blank canvas about what you need to do and how you need to move forward. So a lot of ideas were brought up here. You can even include a bonus at the end of the class. So it's all discussion that we can have and move forward based on that. I think it's a good opportunity.
Well,
Because being a small town, you're always a stepping stone.
Right. And this has been brought up to, I brought it up to the Biddeford city manager. Where I work full-time, because that's where people are just gonna go where the money is. That's what it is right now. And the only way to hold people, not necessarily the employee, but the municipality sort of accountable, would be to do something like the PD already has as a statute. And it was talked about according to Mr. Bennett. I don't know how much traction it got, but it's the same thing. I mean, public service is public service. And the employees are becoming such a hot commodity because there's not many people who want to get into this service. And then you have people that are gonna leave us. I don't have to read. You don't. Stay forever.
And it's hard to compete with the benefits.
Yeah.
You know.
Don't sell yourself short. I will tell you that.
Work environment, so.
There you go, sir.
And when you're out, you're out 24 hours, and you're out 24 hours.
Yes,
Yeah.
you are correct.
I mean, kind of a different sidebar here, but because you work also for benefit, how are our wages? I mean, are our wages competitive with the local surrounding communities? Because I know we've already lost people to benefit, we've lost people to Kennebunk, I believe.
Well, funny you should mention that. I've already done that pay scale.
I want to keep people here.
Yeah, but we're Goodman's Mills out for employee, we're better than they are. Hopefully,
This hiring and training and hiring and training and hiring and training, just.
But in doing that too, you're just creating a higher bar, right? And it's gonna be revolving like that.
I get it.
But what you said is the environment, right? If you can create a workplace where people feel appreciated and they're not overworked. I look at some place like a Gunwood. You don't see people coming and going from a Gunwood. Their wages are okay. They're not super great, but you don't see a lot of people leaving them. So that's the entire type of environment we want to create here. So when it comes to wages, we've talked about here, the cost of living is gonna be CIP. The Northeast Consumer Price Index at 6.4%. That's what the proposal is going forward. Goodwin's Mills is looking at an 8% increase. To put you in comparison, we are, when we start off as like, if we do steps as a 1-year step, we're okay, we're within the ballpark. Once people get here for an extended period of time, we're short anywheres from 120 to 450 an hour, depending on license level. And then when we go to the 20-year mark, we're 342 short. That's comparable to Arundel, Hollis, Goodwin's Mills, and Kenny. I didn't want to compare us to Biddeford by any means. Yeah. Because people are gonna find out that may not be going to you what they so desire.
So what's your pleasure?
Well, I'm certainly on board with that, you know. For sure. Thank you.
You know, I'll move that we approve an extra full time. Guy. I second.
Motion made, seconded for the approval of the full-time fire department position. All those in favor? Motion passes.
Need to a town meeting.
When is it?
June 13th. I think it'll be important.
Yeah.
People will want to hear that and stuff.
Well, the other thing is, I think some of the stuff is going out on social media now, and everything that, I think that's awesome, that's good, you know, and I've heard comments about it, it's nice to see that. So they know what's going on.
The next thing we wanted to chat about, and I think, is the purchase of the self-contained breathing apparatus. I have 145,000 that we're requesting, that's within the special warrant article. That funding will come from the American Rescue Plan. And it will not affect the taxpayer, similar to what we did last year with some upgrades to the building of the firehouse. We also put a new frame under one of our trucks, and we put aside $100,000 additional dollars for paving scheme for our paving work. So this time we're asking for 145. I think the most recent estimate that Andy received was about almost 140. So it was 138 and some change, I think. It may go up or down, but I figure at 145, we certainly are covered. And if we find prior to the meeting that we need to reduce it to meet our goal, then we certainly can. But these, and he can get you into the details of why it's actually needed. But this one purchase does not include a new compressor for the SCBA's that would be purchasing. We're trying to use the existing one with some modifications to it. A new compressor we would then put in for next year's budget. It's going to be around that $40,000 to $45,000 range for a new compressor. But we think that we can use what we have for the time being, and sort of spread that out a bit. But why don't you tell them a little bit about the SCBA's and where we are in terms of equipment that we have now.
So you wanna jump in on this one? You've been there a little bit longer than I have.
It's just a little
A couple days longer than I have.
The SCBA's that we have now, 22 years old, we got them in 2001. We got that through a Fire Act grant, which was very good back then. The issue is every time that a company, an air pack company does a upgrade on them, you're allowed 2 upgrades, then you have to upgrade. So we're into the 3rd or 4th round of upgrades now, so we're 1 or 2 rounds behind. And the new technology is just way above what we have now. They're much more comfortable, they're more user friendly. It's time to do it.
What's the maintenance, once we buy those, is there a yearly maintenance on those?
They have to be full tested every year. I don't.
That's just a partial test, right? Let's just say.
Yeah, and the company comes down, they bring a big truck down and they do it right in house, so it doesn't take us out of service at all. The air compressor has to be maintained every year, have an air quality test done to it. And that's all, the companies all do that, that's all. It costs us money, but it's all part of their program.
What's the NFPA standard on use and service? How long can they stay in service?
Well, the bottles are only good for 15 years. We've got a bunch of bottles that are expiring. We had a similar issue.
Years ago, we had to replace like 30 of them, they were all expired because we bought them all at the same time. So now we've gone into kind of a rotation, so we kind of separate them out, so we get. You only have to buy 5 or 6 every year instead of
Yeah, I
buying
remember the
30 at
chief
the
talking
same
about
time.
that, stagger that.
Yeah,
And that, overall, that's what our ultimate goal is with everything, is not to lump stuff together. I mean, this, just because we lump something together 22 years ago, we sort of got to do the same thing today, but moving forward, we'd like to stagnate stuff out, so there's not such an impact. Now, granted, like the town manager said, this is coming out of ARPA money,
American
right?
Rescue Plan.
ARPA money, but like gear, that type of stuff, just certain amount of sets every year.
because gears and everything, every 10 years, they recommend you replace them. And to replace a set of gear, it's $4,000. It's not cheap anymore.
This SCBA stuff, we replaced it with these funds, are we replacing everything that we have today?
17 sets, correct?
17 air packs, 34 bottles, and it will match all our surrounding departments. Kennybunk, Biddeford, Goodwin's Mills will all have the same SCBA's.
So we still have relatively new bottles, right, that we've bought in the last years. But what are we gonna do with all of those?
Trading.
Because the new equipment, I think, is it Scott Manufacturing this? It's
No.
a different company, right?
Yeah, the new equipment's coming from MSA. We had Scott's before. We could stay with Scott's. The issue is that they're $200,000. So these ones are coming in at 138.77, 771.
So what's the amount you're looking for this article?
I have 145 in there right now.
And what's the difference between those two manufacturers, Scott and what was the other one?
MSA.
MSA, what's the difference in the equipment itself?
Per the NFPA, nothing. For firefighter comfort, the MSA is more comfortable. I'm more comfortable with it. I use it. I've used the Scott up in Westbrook. Where I used to work part-time. I prefer the MSA. This is the recommendation from the committee moving forward. It's a cheaper version.
And then the other thing too, wasn't their technology a little more advanced than what you were?
Yeah,
saying with Scott?
the options to have, even though this is cheaper, it's more of a Cadillac version than a Hyundai at a more expensive price. So I think we're getting a better deal with this
Right.
than going
It's
Scott.
consistent with the local.
Yes,
This will be a separate article.
What do you?
Yes. Be a separate warrant article.
Being pretty quiet over there.
Yeah.
About fire stuff.
The floor says.
Well. Users.
So this article will state that these funds are coming from ARPA.
We have to do that in order to expend them.
Yeah.
For inventory and accounting purposes.
Okay,
Talk a little bit about the purchase of the ambulance. Right now, we have a cost of $350,000, give or take, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. Depending on what happens with the chassis, but we thought that 350 was a good number to be at. So right now, the warrant article is written to approve $70,000 and then enter into a 5-year agreement to lease purchase the equipment for the next 5 years. As we spoke at our TIF meeting, to get the amendments to the TIF agreement, that would be my goal at that point. You go ahead and make those modifications and use TIF funds that we have and buy it outright, but right now I'm uncertain about that, so. Perhaps tell them a little bit about the ambulance, where we are, if you've had any other correspondence with them.
So where we are right now, we have a couple of different options. We can go with Ford gas, Ford diesel. We ended up getting a trade-in value of our current ambulance. It was gonna be about $50,000 they were gonna give us for our current ambulance that's 9 years old. Paid about $190,000 for it, so we're getting about 25% return on investment on that one. We also looked into re-chassising our current box, so where the patient compartment is. We looked into doing that. As of right now, let's just run hypotheticals, staying with a Ford diesel, what we currently have. The cost was gonna be around $330,000. And remounting alone, it was gonna cost $275,000, and that did not include $50,000 worth of additional equipment, which we're getting with the purchase of the new units. They don't wanna do the work.
And the ambulance is down,
Yes,
right, for the time
but
that it's.
we don't know how long. We could get a rental loaner, like what we've done previously. $1 transfer, we give it back, make sure it runs, has tires, and motor hasn't blown up, that type of stuff, we give it back. But we're looking at almost the same cost for a brand new truck. It blew my mind when the pricing came back from Kyle regarding that. I was flabbergasted.
so which ambulance are you looking at, gas or diesel?
Quite honestly, with the $50,000 that they're giving us for trade-in, I think I'd rather stay with the diesel. I think that's what the recommendation of the department was. That way, there's no confusion when we go to Public Works. Or backing in, down and around during the day. One of the complaints that's coming out of Kennebunk, because they went with a gas job, is that they constantly are fueling up the truck. It's only got a 26-gallon tank on an F550. They go to Maine Med, they gotta come back and fuel up. Yeah, they didn't put a bigger tank on it. The diesels have a bigger tank, so
What is putting a bigger tank an option?
I don't know. I didn't get into it with the guy. And the other thing regarding the chassis themselves, initially the proposal was for a Dodge chassis. That's gone up $14,000 since this proposal. The Ford diesel's up 10, the Ford gas is up 2,100. With that being said, speaking with Kyle, the accessibility of the Ford gas is limited. The Ford diesel is the most accessible, and we should, if it gets voted on and agreed upon in warrant article, a town meeting, we should be able to get the truck within, it would be, second, third quarter. Well, we should be able to get it by January of 24.
January 24th.
Yeah,
So that'd be about 6 months out.
Yeah,
Once we give approval.
That's not bad.
well, it's because this truck was ordered in line last year. This is supposed to be a demo unit that they dedicated to us last year. So we're talking, I believe, May 10th, 22, it was already ordered then. For the demo.
Remember, we provided $2,500 to sort of put us in line. So,
If we delay this, we're 2 to 3 years out. If we were to specifically order a truck, we might be able to come up with another demo. I don't know, and I don't know what the cost is gonna be. I can tell you right now, Kenny Bunk's paying over $400,000 for their maintenance. They're going with a different manufacturer. It's owned by the same parent company as what we're purchasing. But it's $70,000 more, and that is with the gas motor.
Keeps, so you have money in the capital account to make the initial payments.
no, we'd be requesting the initial payment through the warrant article.
Right, but we wouldn't have raised that money yet, right?
Well, we'll raise it in June. And request the 70,000 and then go into a 5-year lease agreement.
It's in the capital appropriation fund now.
Most of it is absorbed right now for the large truck. We got what, till 2025? I don't have it with me.
Well, hopefully everything was definitely before when we'll take care of
Well,
that.
yeah, and that would sort of relieve of that burden moving forward, save us a few dollars.
Yeah, and we should, by the time we get ready to set the rate, we should know that by then. If we can't make the TIP meeting by
Correct.
we should know that by.
Well, we set the rate in August, so even if we find out about the TIF after the town meeting and we can do the amendment, we could have that, special town meeting prior to that August. The setting of the rate, which would be good for us too.
You're right, and it's possible fuel vehicles, something allowed in January.
Right? It's a good question. I mean, we can go EV if you want, it's gonna be more money. Oh, we've got 220 at the station, well said, we'll put up solar panels just like they got here. There you go.
So what's your pleasure on the purchase of the ambulance?
I make a motion, we go for it. I mean, otherwise it's gonna be 2 to 3 years before.
Yeah, I mean, you've already got it down in the
Yeah.
article anyways.
Yeah.
For it.
I have a second.
Second.
Motion made, seconded for the purchase of a new ambulance. All those in favor? Opposed? None. The old one. Passes.
Final thing, it's just and I think Brent will hit a little bit about it, gear, 5-gear radios, things that we're working on, and I think we have some, expenditures for those within the operating budget at this point.
Is that additional to what's on here?
I just wanted them to tell you about our fire gear, where we are in terms of it. The discussions we've had on the radios, what's happening with communications in general, which has changed drastically as well, so. I think you just need to know about that, so.
Which we discussed, that might be able to come from TIP as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
The fire gear, where are we with fire gear right now? Some of it, we've got a lot of gear that's probably out of NFPA.
Yeah.
Standards right now.
Yeah, we've got a lot of gear exactly what the town manager said. We've got gear that's 17 years old. The NFPA requirement is 10. Understanding that we don't go to a lot of fires, but it's good until it's not, right? So if something catastrophic happens, they're gonna come after us because of the requirement. So we'd like to do, again, get on a plan, of gear replacement as we go through the years. We just have to make sure that it's there. And that's what we're trying to do. And regarding radio communication, we've got some older radios that need to be upgraded. We also want to possibly, in the future, my priority outside of this would be increasing our tower size. We have horrible communication down on River Road, Senate Road. I don't know if we're gonna increase. We have to look at different options, increasing our tower size or jumping onto some other tower somewhere else that would provide better coverage. But I can't, morally and ethically, it is tough for me that know that crews are down there and not be able to communicate with dispatch because it just comes in as pure static. I've talked to the dispatch director. He's kind of a radio guru. Well, putting repeaters on the truck, and it's like that isn't going to help anything. You have to get to the tower. The tower is going to receive it, and there's just nothing down there. So we've talked about options about maybe getting on Kenny Bunkport's tower to cover that area. We've talked about back in the day. When we developed our tower, maybe you can allude to this a little bit more, give a little bit of history of that.
Yeah, back, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, we did testing with, we brought Head Mounts ladder over. When we put an antenna on top of their ladder at 100 feet, and that gave us coverage all over town. Which means that we have to add 40 feet to our tower, because our tower is 60 feet. So that was an option back then. Of course, it's been a few years, the trees have grown up a little bit more again, so we may have to go up further. Back then, it was, I think it was like $34,000 to bring the antenna up. So
I don't think we could with. Wasn't the old town hall an issue with the guide wires? Like it was in the way.
Yeah, I think the guide wires were the issue.
well, I think the guide wires were an issue because townspeople didn't want to see them. Because the way they had it set up, it wouldn't affect anything but the lawn area, so. Could have gone a freestanding tower, which was like twice the money. It would have taken a 17-foot base to hold the tower up, so. And that would have taken the walkway away from town hall, would have had to be propane tank. It was a big to do, so.
Is there an opportunity to use the communications tower and put a repeater there?
On the one in the transfer station?
Yeah.
Why should we put a repeater there?
Those are the options that we're kind of looking at, not just specifically the tower at the, just so you're aware, like we're gonna look into all these options.
I've actually just got some contact info over on Andrews Road. There's towers over there,
Right.
which seem to be the highest around.
Yeah.
So I finally got some contact information. We're gonna get a hold of them, if that's an option.
Cause I mean, the one at the transfer station, I mean, we leased that out, right?
Lease the land.
We leased the land. I'm not
They
sure.
provide us a monthly lease amount, right, for the use of it.
Seems like we had an option to be able to put something on there.
There's all sorts of co-location
Yeah,
visions in that.
Right.
I thought,
Right, yeah.
seems like there was something that we could put something on there. If we wanted to.
Does that have power, like backup power too?
I think it's gonna generate.
I would
It
imagine.
is a generator.
Okay, and again, we're open to options. I just want to throw that on the radar.
By, I think the doors. Probably there's one behind the garage.
Yeah.
And there's also, I believe, the pitchforks. Have on their property. Yes, there's other towers in town. I think those are the three towers. It's the one by the Menorahs, the pitchforks and ours.
Yeah.
And then we got into an ordinance with the towers and stuff. But I think there was something about us being able to call.
Yeah. I mean,
There are some options.
it's our land, so
Yeah.
boy, if we look into that, it might be a
Might be a.
cheapest opportunity.
We'll have to pull the agreement. Make some calls.
If that isn't tall enough, I mean, that Medora Tower coming out of Kennebunk, you'll look up over the skyline and you can see that top of that tower, the lake.
Such a station, right, and reach any unit that's down. Southern area.
No, our dispatch is in Bitterford.
So is this something that you're planning on coming back with a proposal to get in this year's budget?
No, this will be looking forward. I just, no pun intended, I want to throw it on your radar screen.
Yeah.
Power, get it radar?
Yeah,
See how I did that?
I know we, the public
You
works.
missed your true call.
Yeah, don't feed into that.
So with public works, Roger puts together like a 5-year plan, right? This is what he wants. This is all his equipment. This is what.
Yep.
And I know we've talked about it with the fire station. I know I've asked before. I don't know if we've ever gotten that, but it'd be nice to see looking forward so that we can kind of say, hey, look, we know that this is coming, or so some projected cost in the next 5 years. Radios is one of them.
Yep.
It'd be
I
nice
think
to-
there definitely needs to be some kind of plan in action in regards to
Absolutely.
the vehicles, equipment. Radios, that kind of thing, and it needs to be. Not just initiated, but also maintained on an annual basis. To go through.
Yeah, I mean, Roger does a good job with it, and we look at it and, we go through it every year, and really should have the same thing with the fire station.
Like the major stuff inside that station, the furnaces and all that stuff. It's all 25 years old now.
Yeah.
It's getting old for that type of equipment, so. Yeah, it's a good idea that stuff's gonna stop breaking down.
Yeah.
We're in communication on a regular basis, and I constantly let him know, like, stuff that, just to throw on his radar screen, and to a point, I don't think he's used to that communication, because it's like.
When I see the phone light up, it's him, I go, oh my God.
I mean, when he showed up at the selectmen's meeting, we're like, okay, what do you want?
So are there any other questions for the fire department tonight? I think we're all set.
Good job, appreciate it.
I think it would be a good thing to look into though, to see about, if you can tag on a little bit for paramedic and steps if you're doing. point of
Yeah,
view.
no, it's right here. Yep.
You can offset something.
A lot of towns are charging for it. If I call for a medic, I don't get one. They charge us $350.
Yeah.
So, if you do the same thing.
You guys build most of the time, the insurance.
Something we can definitely look into and bring down something.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Hey,
Back to work.
Oh, I can't leave.
Unless you want to let me go, I'll go back and watch the one.
Yeah, no. No, you have to stay here. I can just buy.
That all you do is watch the boom.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back and eat dinner. All right. Sorry, buddy. You're on your own.
What do you got for the vehicle? Did that? Got something for-
He's about to rail, so we can bring him back.
Yeah.
I'll be going right by the fire station, let him home if you want to ride.
Yeah, I'm not sure, what do you get to ride with?
Yeah, I'm gonna ride it.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep you updated as well.
Yeah.
We threw on there, I think the shot through the thing on to discuss selectmen wages, but I also had a meeting with 6 of my staff members today relative to wages. They understand that that the budget presently has a 6.4% adjustment in wages in there. And I think what predicated it is that Sherry Chenard is leaving our services as deputy clerk by the end of next week. And as Sherry leaves us, I put together an advertisement indicating that a new individual in that job would be somewhere between the $23 and $25 an hour range. That range puts that position, who may be somebody who has no experience, pretty close to folks that have been working for us for 9 to 12 years that are making maybe $26 to $27 an hour. They're a little concerned that I may be hiring folks that are closer to wages without any experience for them. So they approached me as a collective group and discussed it. The other thing, not only did that predicate it, but there was a wage survey that was done by the town of Kennebunk. And that wage survey provided in this particular budget go around somewhere between, in some cases, 9 to 13% increases in wages, and an additional 5% being requested in the next fiscal budget year. So some of those folks, one that was brought to my mind was that one person's going to get $11,000 increase in wages as a result of their survey and what they're doing. So that sort of weighed in with me with our staff saying, you know, can we at least ask for additional funding? So they came to me and they came up with a proposal that they not only would they like to see the 6.4%, but somewhere between $2 and $3 an additional hour rate above that for the positions that were brought forward. So I did the numbers on that just to indicate what that cost would be to us if we considered it, and it would be $56,734.08.
What is factored $3?
I factored in $3 at the time, and I included the biker and the tire into that, which would be $56,734.08. Because the rest of it, the long-term, short-term disability, health insurance doesn't change. So, told them I bring it forward. You guys chew on it a little bit.
The survey, is that a survey of actual wages being paid? Or is this some pie in the sky?
I believe it was a survey of wages that they indicated that should be paid within the area.
Should be, or are being paid.
Well, they're now being paid by the town of Kennebunk because they embraced the survey and have exercised that authority and have already adjusted those wages accordingly.
How does, so their wage, do you know what their wages are versus what our wages?
I don't know.
Because they got a pretty good raise last year, right?
We went 5.5% last year. We're requesting 6.4 right now.
And what did they get the year before?
Whatever COLA was at the time.
I think we're only like 3, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it ended up being 3 because I wanted something
Right.
significantly less, and you guys looked at me like I had 2 heads. So I made an adjustment accordingly. But you know, we have people with us 23 years, we got 2 at 18 years, we got 1 at 34 years, 1 at 20 years, and then 1 at 9, and then the folks lower than that haven't been here like 3 years and then months. So, but some of these people have been here a long time. So I told them I'd bring it forward, let you guys think about it.
So Kennebunk has adjusted all of their salaries right now. And then next year, everybody's gonna get a 5%.
That is correct.
Wow.
According to what they provided to me. Now, they had paperwork with them. I didn't grab it. I can grab the paperwork. We can discuss it, but
But we don't know what the dollar figure is. I mean,
no, we can find out.
they could, I doubt it, but they could be lower than us. I doubt that they are, but.
I don't think they are.
Yeah.
Not to the concern that the staff had with me today.
It's not really apples to apples. Kennebunk's what, 50,000 people? How many people are in Kennebunk?
It's probably 10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Twice the population, at least 2,500.
right.
They also hire staff and then staff to work with staff, like they're, you know, like this, the positions that they just hire, positions that don't even make sense. I mean, they're not even, it's not even like a realistic comparison.
Yeah.
So I like, and are like, so what is our staff saying, like 20-something years in, that like they're ready to leave, that they're like, what's?
Well, I'm not hearing that resonating, being said, but
Like, I
they-
understand we need to be
Yeah.
competitive, but-
their thought was that sometimes you can't compare apples to apples, because we ask a lot of our staff. We've got folks that are trained, cross-trained at can do vehicle registrations at the, we've got one who takes up E911, does accounts payables. We got one that's doing HR services along with, payroll. So they're not in a specific genre, in terms of what they do. So that I think that was another reason why they were concerned.
There's a deputy clerk at that, but that's more of a. I'm gonna say, I wouldn't say.
I'm sure that Simone can fill it in, but deputy clerk, I mean, the way we're using the position right now, she ends up, or he, whoever we hire, ends up being the first person that's at the counter, taking care of registration, answering questions, assists the town clerk and the needs that she needs.
They're doing town clerk, tax collector, registrar voting, you know, a little bit of everything.
Right, so I mean, that's a position that would warrant more money. Somebody that's been here 10 years, and you lay the positions out, that would be a position that should warrant more money for that. Because of all the duties of that person, right? So I think their argument to me is not apples to apples. Their argument.
Well, the only thing is, you go to Kennebunk and, Arundel has always been very well cross-trained, so if somebody's on vacation, you're not looking at closing an office because nobody's there, you know what I mean? They'll people pick up the slack and do things. Well, if you go to Kennebunk, they have a tax collector and maybe 2 deputy assistant or whatever tax collectors. And if you go to pay your taxes, you go there. If you go to get your fishing license, you go there, and there's a deputy clerk, there's a town clerk and a deputy clerk there. So you're not doing everything. Like, you come into this office, you get there and you can register your car, get your fishing license your dog, get your birth certificate with one person. Over there, it's like, well, you go there to get this, and if you want to answer that question, you go to that office. And so, to a certain extent, I think we demand more of our staff than Kennebunk does.
I
Because,
think we most certainly.
they're very, that's not my job description. This is my job description.
And as a result of it, we have had to add an
Yes,
exorbitant amount of other personnel.
right.
Coverage.
yeah, I mean, the assessor in Kennebunk probably has a secretary and then an assistant assessor or whatever. We've got one person doing that job.
Right.
And I think,
And now we have Ian down there that assists code, planning, and assessing. And takes care of managing new days.
if anything, I think we're more demanding of our staff than some of these towns that have very limited functions of what their job descriptions are.
That's why we're a feeder organization, because our staff knows every job. So if Kennebunk has a position open in the town clerk's office, we have 4 people who could go down and fill that position and probably get starting pay of what they're making here, and they just be doing one thing. I think everybody that we've lost to, trying to think who we lost to Kenny Bunk. I know we've lost.
Any month for insurance benefits.
Yes.
Yeah, but that was how long, that was what, 20 years ago?
Well, I
We
heard.
have some longevity to some of our folks, and
Very.
and I think what I think what predicated it was that, you know, now I'm advertising a deputy at the price that I am, and I think they got a little offended,
Yeah.
you know.
Paying
and-
somebody new 23,000, what, I'm only making 24 and I've been here 3 years, so.
Right, and I think that's the key, but I can tell you, I'm not gonna hire anybody for less than what I'm putting out there.
Different sources, clerk.
Oh, they did.
When,
What was that, Tom?
Different just lost their brand new clerk.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Wow.
I saw that.
It's all about money. You get good people, been here for a long time. My thought is, we need to find the money to pay them and hang on to them. Cause you're not gonna replace the kind of people we have.
And I think it's hard because I think, you know, like we gradually give the cost of living increases in that 7 cents. But I think everything's jumped up so much. I know that happened to me in nursing. We were, you know, people were getting hired for almost what we were making, and we've been there 10 years, and we'd sit there and say, when are you gonna adjust us? And oh, it'll come. But it, you know,
And it doesn't.
it doesn't, and you know, you feel like, well, I might as well quit and get rehired. I'll make more money doing that at that point, because it gets to be an imbalance, and I don't think we're, you know.
Yeah, I think
It's just a problem across the board, 6% for everybody as opposed to, I know that's more, but the people with individuals.
Yeah, we had talked about.
yeah,
I think that's hard, but.
yeah, I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
Well, I think the 6% across the board, that strictly as a cost of living increase. I don't think it was meant to deny anybody a merit increase or an increase for longevity in the position.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what this would do? Would give them either merit increases or
Well,
longevity?
it certainly would, you know, you got 6.4, and then if you decide to do this, then obviously it'd be a huge jump.
This would be.
You know, when I
merit-
look at the employees we have, they're wonderful people.
Yeah.
They have done everything that's been asked of them and more.
So
and I
this
have
would be
complete
merit
confidence.
and longevity.
Excuse me?
This would be merit and longevity.
Correct.
To the employees we have now.
Right.
I mean, just like Kenny Bump did, it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that July 1st, they'll get the 6 point.
But yeah, but it's got nothing to do with longevity, it's just a flat out,
Right.
the flat out percentage. It's
Well-
got nothing to do with.
Maybe that's something we need to reevaluate, is
The scales.
the way the scale is set, maybe
Yeah.
we need to, you know, I don't have a problem doing that this year, but, you know, maybe we need to step back and say, all right, instead of waiting until 5 years to
Yeah,
go
and
like,
so
oh.
I mean, you did that a while ago with the fire department as far as with your scales.
Yeah.
When you adjusted for paramedics and basics and all that, you did that, you know, within the last few years. To adjust that, and I think that's, you
See,
know, like you say.
the wage scale that I use and utilizing is from MMA, but it's, I try to narrow it down to Southern York County. Because if we use something north of us, it just doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't jive with, yeah, so we go Southern York County, and then I try to adjust it according to the populations that are in the area. And the uniqueness of us is that, you know, Kennebunkport, Biddeford, I mean, those are people that have a lot of value in the communities. And so it's a challenge, but, you know, you have people also that have been very good to you and spending here a lot of years too.
So,
I believe it is. Matter of fact, I've got a couple folks that are now applying for the deputy clerk's position and are wonderful. They have 40 work week. And I know that other municipalities within our area are already looking at 40 work weeks. It's becoming a normal occupation now.
And that, to me, that should go as part of our, you know, work environment. One of the things that we offer that they don't offer around is that extra long weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Simone's associated with it. She sees it, and I know that, you all have been in the office, you know how friendly our folks are, you know how comfortable we all are with each other. There's a good mix of people, that really get along well together and love it. I think they enjoy providing services to the community. We have a few that come in that you always do, but generally the people that walk through the door are well received, and I think they appreciate what they get.
What's nice with the 4-day work week, when you have a Monday holiday, I mean, they've got a nice long stretch of time.
Right. Right, it's been an advantage, and I think it's been a good one.
But if you were going to look at the pay scales, and you have someone who is the clerk, and that clerk gets X number of dollars a year, but that clerk also does tax collector duties, so that clerk could be compensated X number of dollars a year for those duties. And again, with everybody being cross-trained, that cross-training could in effect get you this up to.
I think that's a great argument
Yeah.
to make, but when I try to put those together, I try to categorize them into a position.
Yeah.
And you got a town clerk, you got a tax collector, you got a deputy clerk. That gives me something to attach to job description wise, provides to them essentially what their duties are. So even though they do have other responsibilities that they're cross-trained to, I try to set them into that.
So everybody had really a main function, but they can do pretty much everything.
I think that's essentially a good.
And that's when you include the other duties as assigned.
Yeah,
So what is
So
your,
I guess
your proposal is we're at 6.4, and what's your proposal?
They requested $2 to $3 more per hour adjustment, above the 6.4. And I just gave you that number and ended up almost being 57, it's 56, 734.08.
What did you use, 2 or 3?
I used 3.
so what would it be if you used 2?
I didn't check the 2,
No.
but I can do the 2.
I mean, when you think about adding one fire department position at 96,000. For 40 something hours, and you think of like the number of staff that you're doing for just $3 for the 56,000.
That sounds awful long.
It's not.
56,000.
I double checked it with all the powers to be, and I had 6 of them in the office today.
I think that, I don't think that, I think that we should reward the senior people more than we reward somebody that's only been here 5 years, 6 years, whatever. I think there should be some advantages to having tenure. I mean, obviously, they've been here longer, they make, but I mean, if we're gonna reward them, I think we'll reward the folks with more tenure more than we do with the ones that don't. It's just my position.
Then I'd be careful with work. A lot of market out there for folks, the competent people.
Yeah.
Is awful. It's just awful. We can't find any staff.
No, I think if we can keep them for this, then go for it, keep them.
Well, there's no guarantee that you're gonna keep all of them.
No,
Right,
but
you're right.
That's the best, yeah. There's no guarantee.
So if you want, I'll put together a package and I'll bring it forward again. You guys can go look at that.
The 56,000 includes FICA taxes.
Spiker and the retirements, yep. Includes the FICA retirement, and then the short-term, long-term disabilities change very, very slightly based on the salary they'll get. But the health packages remain the same.
How many employees would this?
This would be 8 employees.
8 or 6?
8. I had 6 at the table, 2 were busy. I can cut those out if you want.
Are you hurting yourself?
No, I am not.
they were waiting on customers.
So where does that put us, John? I know you probably haven't plugged those numbers in yet, but
Well, I don't have that 50, so I can plug that in. Before we started talking about that, I was at an increase of 48 cents on the mill rate. the mill rate would go up to 1738. Now, that included the ambulance. It assumed 400,000 out of the fund balance. It assumed a $15 million increase in property valuation. It included the ambulance, included the extra guy for the fire department. It assumed a 5% increase in the county tax and a small reduction in the business equipment tax. Now, if that 48-cent figure works out to be anywhere near correct, that's only a 2.84% increase in mill rate. And after a year, when everything has been 6-7% increase, 2.8%, it's
And-
pretty good.
And we're pretty sure that. It's gonna.
Pretty sure that the ambulance will
Right,
go.
go down, and you were conservative on the valuation, and so that would. Hopefully that stands to reason, and we could still be 1% increase, or, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if we manage to slough off the ambulance and crank in this 56,000, it's not a wash, but it's pretty close to it. And we still wouldn't have a horrendous increase in the mill rate. But before doing anything on the personnel increase, I wish we had a little more time to give some thought to restructuring the salary scheme, because I think half of the problem is that people aren't being compensated enough for longevity. I'd like to see something cranked in where we're not doing all that much for the newbies, but you get
There's
a
reason
bigger
to stay.
raise as time goes on, so it pays you to stay.
We have longevity increases,
Well,
don't
we
we?
have 7 cents an hour that's provided to longevity for anybody who's been over here 3 years or more. So, and the fire service has been nothing but. The fire service has been asked me to look at step adjustments, and I think that's basically what you're talking about in terms of years of service. There'd be a certain step associated with that, so. I mean, obviously, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but I'm sure that we can put something together that folks look at.
Just to kind of throw another thought into the whole mix. Instead of 3, how about, it could be up for like 2, but then, next year, another 2.
We can't
Can't
promise
be
that.
that guarantee.
I can't do that.
I can't, you don't know what's gonna happen next
No,
year.
but I think maybe $2 an hour with something along the lines of a step increase, so that they can see a little more is coming if they stay, if they hang out. Could you put together something like that, Keith, without killing yourself in the next couple of weeks?
We could try.
Would the step be locked in forever? It depends on what kind of a scheme he comes up with. That's a possibility.
Personnel policy.
What's that?
We came up with personnel policy.
If it became, yes, you could adopt it as part of the personnel policy.
Yeah, it's
I
like
mean-
teachers. Good stuff.
Right.
It's like increases.
Right. If you put a step thing into effect, it's not like it has to be a step forever. A lot of those kind of programs, you get a step increase each year for, let's say, 10 years.
See, right now,
Then you flatten out for 5 years.
right now, we're talking about 8 employees. This doesn't include public works, fire.
Oh, okay,
Recreation.
so, all right, well, that,
So when you want me to put something together, I certainly can, but I think it's moving forward. I think we put something together, look at it and move forward with it. As opposed to doing, right now, these folks feel underappreciated. Based on some adjustments we've made in public works, fire, and in recreation, so.
We're also really lucky that we have good staff, that we want to give longevity increases to, but that's like the problem of tenure teachers, right? Like everybody gets like to a certain point and they all get tenure.
Right.
But then like, do they all deserve, it? You know, like there are teachers that are new and they're way better. And they don't get it. So it's I don't know, it's a double. We're lucky, I mean, we could do it now easily, I think, but you know, in the long term, I don't know if it's.
You want to convince me?
Yeah.
Maybe it's 6%. Year one or two, and the third year. And then it goes to 1, 2, 3.
Sure.
Like more than the other year, maybe for 5 years.
But I think he nailed it on the head though, because adjustments were made in public works to get people,
Yep.
with CDLs and this and that.
Right.
And fire department is, like paramedics and all that, but that's never happened.
It didn't happen
In the office.
in the office, yeah.
And everybody feels left behind.
Well, I think they do.
Yeah.
That was what they expressed today, particularly after I told them I was gonna be somewhere between 23 and 25 for a new deputy clerk.
Yeah.
I think if eyes could have killed me, I would have.
Well, I felt the same way when I was working at the hospital and we were hiring new people for what almost like, a little bit less than what I was making, and I'm thinking I might as well, it wouldn't be for seniority. So, but yeah, so maybe we don't need to do the steps right away, maybe just adjusting the salaries would be enough, I think, to.
For now.
Oh, yeah,
Now,
that sheds a whole different light on it. It's just the office staff that's feeling left out because the other departments have had increases.
Right.
Maybe we ought to just bite the bullet for the 50,000 for now, but definitely look at some sort of redo of the whole system, over the next year.
Do we do a step, or do we do you get a COLA adjustment, but then you get a merit-based adjustment? I mean, I know that creates a lot more work for the town manager, but,
It's funny because sometimes, and I think you all are familiar with it, I've done this in a bunch of municipalities where you'll go several years and you'll give those cost of living adjustments, and what happens is that, take for instance, somebody that's at the top of the administrative food chain at $100,000, and you're giving him 6.4, and then you're giving somebody at $50,000 6.4, it doesn't equate, that
keep growing.
It keeps growing.
Right.
So what I did is, for a while, I took I would do adjustments, percentage adjustments, and then the following year, I do a lump sum adjustment. So say it's $1,000 or $2,000, whatever it ends up being, that goes across the board to everybody. So you keep that parity together, and it doesn't get out of sync. That's another alternative that you could look at.
The other thing that we could do too is, we could go to Keith and say, all right. We could go to Keith and say, all right, here's your salary budget. $1 million. We give you 3%. I'm just picking numbers.
Yeah.
And then you go take and you just disperse that 3% how you want, based on, merits or whatever. I mean, that's a lot more work for you. But I mean, that's how a lot of places work.
Yeah, I understand.
that's how the bank worked, and that's why we had so much turnaround. Because we could make more money going to another bank.
So anyways,
Anyway,
I'll put something together, you guys can take a look at it. John and I, now that we're getting down to the nitty gritty here, we'll probably communicate about more than,
yeah. Well, if you got this 56 now, I mean, if the vote was made now, that would take care of the girls in the office.
Yep, it would.
Then I will make that a motion that we give you your 56, $7.34 and 8 cents.
And that's for $3. I can't.
That was 3.
That's for 8 people. How that works out is up to him and the 8 people.
Yep,
Okay,
I can do that.
motion made, seconded.
Who seconded it?
Simone,
Someone did? Who- oh,
Then I know.
I'm sorry, can I ask, what are we voting on here?
We're voting to allocate the $56,734.08.
8 cents.
Okay. That was just gonna be a straight $3 an
Yes.
hour for every.
Correct.
employee.
Yeah, those eight employees.
Those
that are-
8 employees.
Fifth grade, we don't- they don't want to like. works.
Yeah, I just got $3.
But they got it several years ago as far as scales, I think.
Yeah, we're in good shape with Public Works, and every time I
I'll
talk
just
to,
give you that as an example.
Yeah, I know. I talked to Roger and, I talked to Roger in Terry, and they always said that when they keep looking, that we're very competitive in terms of hourly rates, so,
That's what, yeah.
yeah, I think we're right there with that.
When we did the hourly changes for those folks, what was the dollar amount? What, it wasn't $3, was it? I don't think it was that high.
Some of them were like $5.60.
I was just gonna say, there was some.
Was it?
Yeah.
You guys have been more than generous in a lot of aspects when it comes to wages for your employees.
That's because we want to keep them and we want to keep them happy.
Yep.
So they don't look at Kennebunkport and
So we have a motion and a second on
It
the.
looks like that additional 56,000 would add another 10 cents to the minute.
so 1748.
So we'd be up to 17.
All right, motion made and seconded. All those in favor of increasing from 6,738 over 73408.
Yep.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right.
Well. You know what, I want a $3 now. Everybody else is gonna.
You're right. I think you said that wrong. You wanted. All right.
Left is what you brought up.
All right, and the current selectmen's raise, what's it?
Right, you,
Monthly rate.
yeah,
Yeah.
you brought it up, so I don't know where you are with it. I can tell you what. they're getting now.
It's 1,500.
1,500,
1,500 a
we
year.
get 1,800 a year.
1,800.
What's your proposal?
$138.
2400 a year.
2,400 a year.
Yeah,
They don't take out taxes.
How about we elderly selectmen's compensation?
So you're going from 18 to
36.
36?
That goes my taxes.
Yeah,
You guys don't want to have any part of this.
yeah.
I do.
John, we need to get them to see if they can come back.
Yeah.
That's not my purpose here.
So we have a, do the RSU directors make money?
No, they're supposed to. They're supposed to, but they put it in last year's budget for them to get a stipend and it got voted down.
Oh.
Which I think is totally wrong. They shouldn't, the time that they
They
spend.
spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, raise your hand and do this. Oh, come on.
It's not.
Even this year.
Glory.
Really nuts.
So we got a motion, but we don't have a second.
For which number?
3,600. 36.
Really? I get, let's get. Lots of.
So what was your original proposal? Were you proposing
Oh.
to double it?
No, I was proposing to increase it from 18 to 2,400 a year.
Okay. Where did 2,400 come from? This.
Just, I know that the.
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, I know that the selectmen also have a kind of budgeting, increase. And
Oh my God, you guys.
30
That's
years.
one of the years I've been doing this,
No.
and I think that's,
This is
Yeah.
my 14th year, and I don't think it's.
Now, probably been like 20 years or more since we've had a raise.
I'm certainly not here for paycheck.
Same thing, yeah,
Okay,
We love it.
yeah.
Okay, so we're catching up on 20 years of no raises.
We want our $3.
Yeah.
20 to 36 coming. Like double the,
Just double that.
double what they get now.
So lack of a second, I guess that motion fails.
Deal front for.
What's your motion? Want to go to 24?
2,400 a year.
2,400 from Sean. We have a second for that?
I'll second that.
And Michelle seconds that. Any further discussion? Not hearing none. All those in favor of moving the selectman salary from 1,800 a year to 2,400, please raise your hand. Opposed? Now you're gonna make me count. How many do we have for in favor again? I'm sorry. We
Well,
have
the select-
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I guess I don't.
Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think we can't vote. We can vote.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe that's-
Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 4. It passes.
Yes, I think, yeah.
You say
Yeah, I'm saying it. I'm not voting on anything that has to do with us.
I think that's an insult. After 20 years at the same salary and you offer them an extra.
Well, you can double it next year.
My take is the select board is not here for the money. They're here to help the town. I'm here to try to do something for the town if I can. Definitely not about the money. I know it's not.
Yeah.
There a little something about it. 3,600, I'd have to quit my day job.
You put you in another tax bracket. We gotta pay taxes on it at the end of the year. Nothing comes out.
So it looks like we'll make an adjustment of 2,400. Selectmen's wages, okay.
That should add another half penny.
I think we hold off on,
I could care less if we get paid enough.
I think we hold off on going over the warrant at this point. Let me put these numbers together. I'd like to make us meet a little quicker than we have, so perhaps next week, we have a meeting on Monday, maybe we can.
You know, I'm never opposed to that.
Let's meet on Wednesday. It's a Wednesdays, okay, or Thursday?
Or Tuesday. Tuesday or Thursday
No,
next week.
I can't do Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm gonna. just-
No, I'm not saying in, I'm saying for.
No, I can't, either one,
You wanna stay with Wednesday?
yeah.
Which Wednesday for you?
Better for me.
What do you got? You gotta go do something fun?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, well, geez, I mean, you gotta sacrifice that every now and then.
I'm already. off the-
What's the date next Wednesday?
26.
Yeah, I definitely can. Do that.
26 is Wednesday.
26.
Okay, 7 o'clock on the 26th. I'll have those numbers in the air, have a warrant. Maybe by then, Bill can give me a little direction on the amendments to the TIF by then, so.
Can I do my stupid question, don't I?
Of course you can,
Yeah.
seeing that you've been in the paper for a while.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So we've got like 2 or 3 public works people short, basically this entire year, right?
Yes,
So we'll have leftover funds going into general fund at the end of the year from that, basically from that line item.
so, yes,
So what's the harm in upping the increase that we put in, we pull out from general fund? Like we're anticipating 400,000, why can't we go 500,000 if we know we're gonna put 200,000 back in?
we could go 500,000, I don't have any objections to 500, I think that we have a surplus.
What's that?
We have those.
You're not gonna have any surplus.
Yeah, but that's next, that's, I mean, yeah, so what if we hire them? The money's accounted for,
Well, the way
but we're not gonna hire anybody by
But you're not
June.
gonna put it, it's not gonna go over to the general fund and undesignated until next year if we don't spend it.
Right, no, but that's this year, right?
No, it's next year.
Right. July 1, you're saying fiscal year 23, 24, right?
Not gonna spend it, won't spend it. But we have to have it there just in case we hire something. That,
Oh,
That's
no,
this budget.
you're not talking about taking anything out of this budget. No, he's talking about the money that's coming,
That's
that
gonna
will
go
have a
into,
surplus at the end of the budget. Right. So his thought is to go up to another 100,000 in
With
the
the
fund.
anticipation of there'll be 100,000 left over.
So if you put 500 there, even if we didn't have that, I'd say that 500 is something that we could reasonably.
What are we're required with the audit, and we're required to have a certain designated fund, right?
Yeah, it's 20%, I think.
And we're well above that, aren't we?
Yeah, we're in good shape.
I just feel as if like Arundel, I mean, we tap out on permits every year, the place is building nonstop, so I feel like our anticipated tax revenue moving forward is gonna sustain itself at least for another couple of years.
But if
We have the
frame-
cottages coming on board, we have,
we framed that warrant article like we did last year, we've got 400,000 to be used by the board at their discretion to adjust the tax rate. And last year, we only used 105, so we go from 400 to 500. Allow the flexibility when it comes August that you can make that adjustment, and we accomplish the goal that you like to see.
right,
and then you factor in backing out the ambulance if the TIF goes through.
Right.
I think we could almost create a, not flat. Pennies. increase.
Well, if we go up to 500,000, that gets us down to a 40-cent increase in the mill rate. If we take out the ambulance, that's probably gonna reduce that by another 12 cents.
Yes.
So you'd probably be looking at about a
17, even.
28-cent increase.
Yeah,
in the
17
rate.
even in that range.
About 17. 20.
No, it wasn't that.
I,
We're at 1748 now, right?
1730 with the extra 100,000 coming out of the fund. If we up the fund transfer from 400,000 to 500,000, that brings us up to 1730 on the mill rate. We take out the ambulance, I think it would save about 12 cents, so bring it down to 17, about 1718.
From, and what's our current, what are we?
1673, I think, 1673, right?
No, it's 1690. 1690.
Oh, present, yeah, today.
$16.90.
Oh, it was 1670.
And it's been, we held. The year before was 1690, we held it this year to 1690, we can go up on it.
Okay.
And no matter which of these options that we do, I mean, we're not looking at a huge percentage increase in the bill rate. And considering the fact that we held it even last year, I think the town is getting pretty damn good deal, really. Not that anybody-
I have something I'd like to kind of, I know it's more of a board decision, but I think the budget board should be involved in it too, is the fact that should we start budgeting for a revamp eventually, I think we've gone like, I think, what was it, like 1990 was the last? No, it was 90, can't remember when the last,
It's funny you bring that up. I
I
talked with the assessor the other day about it, and yeah, we're getting close, I think we're at 80.
think she
81,
said 77 is what it's gonna be this coming year.
it could be 77,
I
so
mean, just the fact of the sales, like you see, some of our assessments are like, $190 or $200,000, and these houses are selling for 500 and something, and I know it's only gonna make. I think there's a lot of new houses that are. They're not equitable anymore, and I think we really need to start looking at that, and I think it'll drop the mill rate, it's not gonna make. They say, what is it, a certain percentage stays the same if you go down and if you go up.
Third.
Yeah, and, but I think,
your mill rate will go down,
yes, it will go
Yeah.
down, even.
but the tax that you're paying.
Stay the same.
Yeah.
taxes you pay.
Right, but I think equity wise, it's like,
Correct.
it's,
You'll-
we're getting to the point where sales are just.
We're getting there. But we wanted to hold off one more year. It'd be something that'll be on the table for next year.
So do we have to start budgeting for that? Is that something that we should start, or will that come out of undesignated? I don't know what the cost is anymore.
yeah.
It's just-
We'll have to wait and see what the cost is. I know she's working on it.
expensive, I think.
Yeah.
Would that be something you could get a ballpark price on before the next meeting, Keith?
We can try.
But if you
Yeah,
have
I'll
to
talk
look at this over a couple, 3 years, we've got something.
I'll talk to her.
So if we do that, then will that change our, at the end of the year when we get our valuation? That'll change that, right? That'll,
The state.
Right, you'll have an adjustment in your I think the state has us at over 600 million right now, even though we think we're at 539. They have us at 600 million. So. They use that for school adjustment, yeah.
and that wouldn't change our yearly valuation increase, right? Like this year, you're expecting, what, 15, what are you thinking, 15, 17?
15 million.
Right, that wouldn't change that at all.
Right. You may pick up some value, you may be undervalued on some of your properties right now. But again, that old adage, a third and third and third. So we have some properties that I know. If you look at our tax cards, you'll look at in 2020, a property sold for, almost $500,000. When you look at our assessment, we're at 350. So, that's telling you that, that we have that inequity right now. So the market's telling us one thing, but we only can get so much value out of it. Based on the program and the statistics we have together at this point.
Well, if you had bought a cottage, I think when the cottages first started, you could buy one of the first cottages for less than $250, and it was like $249.
Yeah.
Now that same cottage is selling for $450.
One of the things that we probably should keep in mind in presenting this budget is that people won't have to buy cards for the transfer station anymore. I don't want to get Tom over it. But that could be, worth a couple $100 a year.
I had a guy in today complaining about the punches he got in his car.
People just.
What's that?
Yeah.
Now, what are they doing?
They decided that they really don't stop. Coming back in.
What's this on? On what? Oh, you mean
Stabilization stuff?
No, that one, you know how you can sign up now to set your rate?
Yeah.
For puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they gotta do that thing. That doesn't exist. That legislation is terrible.
Yeah. They're looking to adjust it according to income.
I don't know what they gotta do, but
Right, that is.
Yeah.
once you have a set amount. That could stay with you whether you buy $1 million home, you still pay that assessment.
Yeah, well, that's what they're
Crazy.
gonna, that's what they're looking to change.
Yeah, it's almost like, what is it? Was it California like that for Proposition 13?
I forget the details.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, but it was frozen, yeah.
yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
So just for the record, a no punch card, I'm worried about that.
We're losing how much, 130,000?
I'm worried that Casella is gonna end up coming back next year and saying, hey, your tonnage is like gone and then price is just gonna go back up. a little.
Well, I think we're gonna find that, some adjustment may be made here. I think, You know, you look at what our neighbors are paying for trash. Even at 271,000, we're still getting a pretty good deal at this point.
And I think that a lot of people who still have their trash picked up are having it done because I'm not going up to the dump because that is just too inconvenient and they're still gonna pay to have the trash picked up, whether they have to have a sticker or not. So,
Yeah, some
And
people,
also if. I agree with you that tonnage probably is gonna increase.
It does.
Yeah. But what's it gonna cost you?
Take your heads.
The trash doesn't go to the dump. If it winds up all over the roads. Which.
Right, but that's not happening now, and we're getting some revenue.
Don't live on Limerick Road.
or River Road.
I think we're all set for tonight. All right.
Let's go, John.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
adjourned.
Second.
All those in favor? Everybody else will stay here, thank you.
Thank you.
I knew, I can see, you're ready to snap. I didn't want to see that happen.
I haven't been around.
Oh, no. Yes, yep.